Guy Jeans, and welcome to fly casting class. I'm going to make you a better fly caster. We're going to be talking about the roll cast, and what I'm going to be doing in these series is I'm going to tell you why we do the roll cast and how to do the roll cast. So the first part of the roll cast I'm going to talk to you guys about is why we do the roll cast. So imagine you have a whole bunch of trees here behind you, and a lot of people think that you can't fly cast when you have obstructions behind you, trees, rocks, all that kind of stuff. People think that you can't fly fish or fly cast. And if you guys imagine, right here behind me, there's a big tree. As long as I get this line behind me, I can actually pull down and roll out my line. And if I wanted to, I could cast across the whole river here. Now, the other reason why we use the roll cast is I'm going to bring all this line up here. When we're first getting started, we pull out all our line and we have all this slack right here in the water. And before we can do any kind of a cast, we've got to get rid of that slack. And so we use the roll cast to get rid of that slack. And I say to get organized so we can actually do a back cast. And we're going to talk about that later on in the series. Another reason that we do the roll cast, and you guys might appreciate this, is sometimes when we're fishing and we're bringing in our line, we get snagged. Or sometimes we get snagged in the tree. And we can use the roll cast as a tool to get our flies back. You know, flies cost anywhere from $2 to $20 if you're using a bass fly or a really nice saltwater fly. Sometimes these flies can be really expensive. So you want to get your flies back, especially if they're 3 flies on a rig. You're doing European nymphing and you have all those flies on, you want to get your flies back. So what you do is you pull out a little bit of line, shake out a little bit extra line, come back, and do a roll cast right at those flies, and hopefully it'll pop the fly off the direction that it came in, and you'll get all your flies back. We use it all the time. Another reason that we use the roll cast, I believe this is the 4th reason I'm talking to you guys about, is wind. You know, imagine we had a whole bunch of wind behind me right here, and it's going this way. It's really hard to do a back cast in the wind, so we can actually use the roll cast to our advantage when we actually come underneath the wind, come up, and actually roll cast and use the wind to our advantage. It's a great little tool for that. Another reason that we use the roll cast, the 5th reason, is sometimes when I'm fly fishing, I like to fly fish in the surf, I like to fly fish in lakes, I like to get my line down, and we use these lines that sink, they're sinking lines. And before even getting our line to the surface, we have to do a roll cast. Boom! And what that does is it raises our fly line up to the surface prior to us doing a back cast so that we're able to get our cast out there. And those are the 5 reasons why we do the roll cast. I want to show you guys how to do the roll cast. I'm going to bring some of this line in here. And what's interesting about the roll cast is it doesn't take a lot of power. You can roll cast on both sides of the body, which I'm going to show you guys. I'm going to bring my line over here on my left side. So if the wind was actually blown into my right side, I could bring the line over here on my left side. But I also can do it on my right side. So just depending on what situation I'm in, if I'm fishing upstream, that sort of thing, I can fish like this and just roll cast across the water over here on this side of my body. I could literally do that all day, which is really, really cool. But let me show you guys how. So I'm going to put my line out there and let the current take my line out. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to raise my rod up kind of slow, and slow is a key word for right now. I'm going to bring my rod up really slow, and I'm going to raise it back out. I'm going to tilt it away from me just a little bit. I'm going to raise this thing up to about head high. I always do this. Hello. Bring this thing up. Get this up about head high, and what we want to do is we want to form this thing called a D loop. You can see the D right here, the current's kind of taking it. I want to bring back, get that D-loop, and then once I get that D-loop, I want to pull down. And when I pull down, you'll see the line right here in the water. It actually sticks to the water and forces a rod to bend. Now in fly casting, the most important thing is to bend the rod. And so if I can bend the rod, the line will go out there. So we have to bend the rod. I'm going to show you guys that. So I'm going to come back real slowly. I'm tilting my rod away from me a little bit. I'm bringing this up about head high. Got this up in an L shape right here. And what I'm going to do, once I get to this position, I'm going to pull down like this, come down like I'm hitting an imaginary table right here. So it's going to be like, boom. So it forces a bend in the rod when I come forward. Let me show you guys what that looks like. I'm going to come back, got my D-loop, my elbow's up head high, this is up pretty high here. I'm going to hammer down right here. Boom. Do it again for you. So I'm going to come back really slow, tilt my rod slightly away from me, get my D-loop back here. This is up about head high. Imaginary table right down here. I'm going to pull down. Hammering down on an imaginary table right here. One of the mistakes that a lot of people do is they go like this. They come back and then they hammer down and their rod hits the water and they don't stop. And what we have to do is we have to accelerate to an abrupt stop. So when we come back here, we want to accelerate to an abrupt stop. You know, fly casting is kind of like throwing a dart. You know, when you throw a dart, you have to kind of accelerate to the end of the stroke like this. You can't go like this. So fly casting is very similar. You want to come back and then accelerate to an abrupt stop. If you can do that and get that timing down, it'll work. Let me come back here. Elbows up, head high. Got this up here. Got my D-loop, imaginary table. I'm going to accelerate to an abrupt stop right here. Boom. The thing will roll out there really nice. Now, I've showed you guys how to do it correctly. Let me show you what I did when I first learned. This is what I do and most people do when they first learn. They go like this, they come back, and then they come all the way back like this, and they try to throw it. And what happens there is it doesn't bend the rod, just makes this big oval circle, and the line just piles in front of you. They also do this. They come back, and they throw it up in the air like this. And the line just piles in front of them as well. Another thing that people do, which is very common, is they'll come back like this, and then they'll drop their shoulder back like this, and look what happens to the rod. The rod actually comes behind me, and then when I try to cast, it hits me. And that's a very common mistake. Oh. Tangle here, pull this out. So when you're doing this cast, make sure that you just tilt the rod away from you a little bit so that it doesn't come behind you. You kind of have to concentrate on that when you first learn it. And then when you come forward, hammer down on this imaginary table. Boom. You accelerate to an abrupt stop. Now when you guys want to do a cast on the opposite shoulder, all you do is you just turn your wrist out like this. And that puts your rod tip on this side of your body. You do that again. Just gripping it regular like this. And I just tilt my hand like that, puts my rod over here. And now I can come back and bring the line on this side. And it's almost like I'm hitting my hat brim here, or I'm just tilting it right here next to me like this and rolling out. I do that again. Same thing, it's almost like I'm hitting my hat brim here and hit down on this imaginary table. Boom. And this is a great way to cast when you have wind going into your right side, your casting shoulder. My name's Guy Jeans. This is the first of many series for learning how to fly cast. I hope this makes you a better caster. We'll see you next time on Casting with Guy.